Well, a flattish market today, as the day was dominated by a few big results as well as some regulatory actions and some geopolitics. So let me first talk about the regulatory factor. So what I want to say is that we talked about the CAS yesterday, the closing auction system. Market is stabilizing towards that because today the difference between the Sensex and the Nifty was down. I think Nifty was down about 27 basis points and the Sensex was down about 58 basis points. So compared to yesterday, the difference is narrowed. Market is getting used to the system. The second regulatory action which happened today was that RBI introduced some stricter norms for lending norms for the NBFCs and financial services space, which is expected to impact their business a bit. So today that sector, financial services sector, got hit today. I think it was down about 1.5% today. That was the other major regulatory development. The other thing was in terms of geopolitics. Again, the US and the Iran seem to come to an agreement, but again withdraw. There's the talk of a tariff on Hormuz Strait and US denying it. So again, oil crept up now back above the 80 levels to about $82. So that's again a negative overhang. Apart from that, the fact of the matter is today was like FII saying, I'm absent, sir. DII saying, I'm absent, sir. And NIDI also saying, I'm absent, sir. Reason I say that is, if you see for FII perspective, they were positive 500 crores. DIIs were positive 200 crores. So it looks like they were pretty much absent from the action today. And if you look at the advanced decline ratio, it was 1500 up, 1500 down. So it looked like even NIDI balanced itself out. So today was a very thanda, in that sense, to use a Hindi word, market. And so you saw that the mid-cap index was up 22 basis points against the Nifty's 27, and the micro cap and the small cap were flattish, were like 5 basis points negative, so positive. So hardly any movement. But the sectoral churn was quite deep today because we saw those results. They drove some of the things. So auto was the best performer, 1.8% up. IT was up 1.5%. Defense and PSU banks were up about 68 basis points. The PSU bank was driven largely by state banks' phenomenal performance released today. I'll touch briefly upon that shortly. Right. The bottommost was financial services for the reason I explained. RBI's, I'll also touch upon what happened there, and private banks also got hit. Consumer durables also got hit a bit, right? So apart from this, globally there was the rupee strengthened marginally at about 95.20, neither here nor there. The dollar index was also trading at the 99.89 levels throughout the week. Same thing continued. The US Treasury went up by 3 basis points from 4.63 to 4.66, and India's 10-year remained flattish around 6.7. So nothing special happening there. But the news for the day, what is that? First was, of course, I told you about Brent crude going up because of the disconnect between Iran and US. The good news in a way for us from a Fed perspective is that the US economy lost 23,000 jobs in July, whereas market was expecting an 80,000 job increase. So almost 1 lakh was the difference between the two. And they also revised the previous 2 months, May and June, down by 100,000 jobs. So clearly a significant weakening in the US labor market, which is good news from a Fed rate cut and for emerging market flows. So while it's not good news from a US economy perspective, it's good from a markets perspective. Let me focus a little bit on the earnings today. Like I said, State Bank reported a 10% growth in net profit, 15% growth in the net interest income, and a droppage in the asset quality, improvement in the asset quality, with the gross NPA dropping to 1.47 from 1.83, and net NPA also dropping to 0.38 from 0.47. So State Bank stock was naturally up about 1% today, and they resisted the negative move on the banking sector today by and large. Other results which were of importance, Godrej Consumer reported very good results, about 11% increase in their profit, and revenue was 18% up. I think their business in Africa contributed to this. Hero MotoCorp also reported a decline, but that can be taken into account from the fact that last year they had a 700 crore one-time gain. So because of that, they showed a decline. Otherwise, revenue was up 35%, and their two-wheeler sales also grew very well by 23%, right? Ola Electric also showed, the electrical industry showed good numbers, and Ola Electric narrowed its profit down by 21%. So again, that's an improvement in their business. In that sense, electric vehicle sales overall, FADA released the data, they're up about the 66% YOY, driven of course by phenomenal 88% growth in two-wheeler EV, 83% growth in cars, and a 25% growth in three-wheeler auto rickshaw kind of a thing. So overall, the electric vehicle industry is on a good wicket and growing, and Ola's sales also reflected that. The other final earning that I wanted to talk about from a good company was the Titan company, which showed its jewelry portfolio grew 43% by strong festival and Akshay Tritiya and all those demand. And their watch portfolio also grew 21%, though it was on the premiumization of regular watches, not just smart watches. So overall, these numbers to some extent influenced the performance today. But like I would say, today was a tug of war day where both sides didn't do much and just skipping, and the market didn't go anywhere, right? Look forward to my weekly review, which I'll post on Sunday or Monday. Thank you.